I would suggest and say, and I think I mentioned that yesterday, people that have taken this law class previously kind of struggled to come up with ideas for this. You have a different experience and background now because we've been somewhat through this. The idea that people were literally sent home and told to stay home, that businesses closed,
Stop it.
you know, hospitals told you that, you know, it's unlikely, like double really consider it before you come here because we may not have services for you.
It's supposed to be this is well, right?
Yeah,
Would you, when you wear a watch, is it on your non-dominant hand?
yeah.
Mine
Yeah.
don't, mine don't.
Yeah, but you.
Most people wear on the wrong.
Well,
this is so weird.
It's so hard to write.
Exactly what I'm saying.
It's in the way.
Do we want to start sharing some ideas? Okay, who's got something for me? The faster you share, the more likely is somebody like won't have said it already. So Marissa,
Adjust legal system.
on the functioning side. Okay, on the functioning side, we have a just legal system.
Yeah, opposing corrupt legal system or corruption.
Oh, as opposed to,
Yeah. Yeah, corruption.
sure, okay. Just, we'll get into, you know, kind of like we've talked, some of us have talked about some terms. When we start using very general terms in a very specific type of course or subject, sometimes you can't use them interchangeably anymore. We might say that just laws are fair laws. Fair, equal, all that kind of stuff it's not the same and it's not as easily used interchangeably when we talk about the law. Because the law might aim for fairness, but it's impossible to be fair in the legal system. And we'll end up talking about that, having a discussion. Who else? What? Raina?
There's more peace in a function.
Peace? Just like a sense of calm, kind of?
And like no war.
Yep. Free from war and conflict. Yep. Topanga, did you have one?
For chaos. With looting.
Looting? Yeah. It is a sense of lawlessness, right? We played that game in our social class. We went into an online whiteboard and everybody created some resources and we went round and round, and if you wanted something, you took it, or you respected the property rights of someone, but there was no organization to the law, as an example. Okay, who else? What else?
Resources?
Resources are available? Yeah. Resources are available and reliable, I'll say, because that was the question that we had. And you said what? Emergency services? And I'll put with emergency services and policing is available, you know, to you. On the other side of that, for example, you know, there's no help. No help, no protectors you can rely on. 911 doesn't work.
Yeah, I kind of put that down too.
Yep.
Inside like that, you can't. When there's no like government.
Yep, here there's no government structure, like no structure or benefit to government. If it's chaos there, nobody is paying attention to that. So we've got on the safe functioning society side, people follow the rules, services are provided for, there is a mentality of, existing as a group. People are part of clubs, activities, there's a sense of otherness. You respect laws out of respect for other people, and they respect you and respect the laws, on and on. So a group mentality. In a society that's fallen into chaos, it is every man for himself. If I can say man, every man or every woman, every person. You might look out for your family, but you don't care about what your neighbor's going through. Sometimes you don't have the capacity to assist other people. So a functioning society has coexistence, right? In a non-functioning society, people become distrusting of each other. There was the conflict that we were experiencing not too long ago as well about, do you call in about your neighbors who've had a social gathering over what the province said was an allowable amount, things like that. We said over here we have limited resources. And when we're talking about things like that, we're talking about food, gas, gasoline, things that can run a generator. Clothing was a part of it, but specifically food, that kind of stuff. And there's also an uneven power distribution. If you suddenly find yourself in a chaos situation, some people may want to show up with a wad of cash and say, okay, let me buy out that secret stash you have in the back of your store. And somebody might say, money doesn't work anymore. There's no value to it. You need something else that's of value, right? A gun might be more valuable to you than having money. So very different in a functioning society versus a society in chaos, as an example. So like I said, we have all sorts of examples from films and, a fiction that have given examples of this type of loss of function in society. I don't know if do you know the television show Lost?
Yep.
It was very popular for a time, and it was one of those ones where people were really disappointed with the finale. I personally never watched it, but it was kind of, I think, a sci-fi. There was a bit of a science fiction element to it, but they were abandoned on an island kind of thing. Lord of the Flies is an old...
I've seen Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies?
I don't know Lost, but I've seen Lord of the Flies.
Sure. It's a fiction book. There's a copy of it on the back wall. Some people study it in grade 12 ELA. The idea of... I think it's a plane or it's a boat that crashes, and it's a bunch of middle years age boys that end up alone on the island. There are no adults. And so they have to determine how are they going to make decisions, how will they elect a leader. And in the end, some of the boys start killing other boys it's just like that. I Am Legend we mentioned, War of the Worlds you mentioned, Zombieland was, at the time a really impressive film because of all of the gore. How many of you have seen that? Do you remember that film, Zombieland?
Yep. Oh, that's a great.
One of the best moments in it is the Bill Murray cameo, where they break into a home and they realize it's Bill Murray's, and he comes out all like a zombie, and they shoot him. And then it turns out he was wearing zombie makeup so that he could pass for zombies. And so now he's shot and he ends up dead. But he wasn't. So that made it okay, yeah.
Like actors.
Sure. Or Shaun of the Dead. How many of you know that film? That's like a cult classic, Shaun of the Dead, right? And actually that had really great cinematography or whatever, but what are the things all of these examples have in common? There is no society, really. There is no society, right? Every person on their own. No authority. Resources not shared equally. There's also no or little fear. There's little fear of consequences. You know, you kill somebody when it's live or let die, right? Do or die, battle to the death. So hopefully, thankfully, we don't live in that kind of circumstance there. So these shows include societies where law and order, that's a common phrase, right? Excuse me. I'd really like if you can just stick with this conversation, please.
No, we were just asking what age they were, because we weren't caught up.
Okay.
No society.
Okay. Here, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. There are some questions here. I'll give you some time to consider on your own. It goes on to the other page. We can read through them together. What's the biggest thing preventing these societies from regaining the natural order that functioning societies have? Question 2, is it essential to have written rules for a society to function smoothly? We have what's called codified law. There's the Criminal Code of Canada. There is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's written down and documented. You can access it. Even Saskatchewan's bylaws, you know, you have to be informed in order to follow those laws, that kind of stuff. Do you think it's important that rules are written so that a society can function, or can they maintain control naturally without the documentation? Question 3, does it seem like order exists if some members of a society have rights when others do not? Can that kind of order exist? And you might think on the surface of it, say no. Then you'd have to talk about, it's like the equality of rights. Yeah, technically every Canadian has the same rights. Are they applied equally? Do they protect each other, all of those people, equally? 4, how do you think resources are used in a society without order or rules? And what problem could they cause? So if there's nobody controlling, if there's nobody ordering gasoline, if there's nobody monitoring gasoline as it's brought into the province or things like that, what problems could that cause? Which do you think is more effective, using punishment to maintain order or offering rewards? Punishment is that our laws are a deterrent. You know, a lot of you follow laws because there's a consequence, you know, that would follow. You don't assault people because you know there's a consequence. You find another way to deal with it. If there wasn't necessarily a consequence, then maybe that doesn't hold you back as much.
People would definitely like speed a lot more if there wasn't like $100 speed.
Yeah.
Like things
Well,
like
we
that.
do.
Well,
But
yeah.
it's like a tax. We choose to accept the penalty if it gets to that. Describe 4 functions of a society where order and rule does exist. What are 4 characteristics where rule exists, and what does that society function like or look like? Haiti is a country that was turned into a chaos society overnight many times because of their natural disasters. What parts of their ordered society do you think would fall apart first? Try to list 4. I'm just going to give you time to consider those questions.